Hello and welcome to episode 47. Where did we leave off in episode 46? Well, we started episode 46 in a pit with Lucifrique the dragon glaring down at us, asking us to put out our hand because he wanted the taste of flesh. Through a series of flattery, we managed to talk him out of taking our hand, and instead talk him into keeping us in one piece, because we, as a horizon walker, a stepper of the plains, can jump around all over the place and help him out. We can help him to rule more than just one plane of existence, but many. Seemed intrigued by that, and so he agreed to keep us and Briar alive and in one piece for now, as hostages or prizes or treasure or whatever you want to call it, if we can prove to him that we are indeed blessed by the gods. So we misty stepped out of the hole and then, with the blessing of Altamez, shot a tiny little wren who was fluttering around about 50 feet away. And we, doing so, proved to Lucifrique our skill with a bow. And so he got us on the back of his half green dragon giant mole offspring, and our friend Briar, the halfling druid lady, she got on the back of the half green dragon red deer and scrambled up out of the pit, and he led us away through the forest back towards the northeastish of where we had been for the trap, which is about northwest of the town of Fondurg. After not too long walking, we arrived at a large, thick wall of impassable brambles and vegetation. And Lucifrique, checking the wall out, stalked around one side of it, revealing to you as you followed that it was in fact a dome, not a wall. A huge 100 feet tall dome of vegetation. He seemed to walk towards the wall, and the wall seemed to part and move out of his way, creating a thorny doorway. He walked into this dome, and in the darkness within, there were numerous treetop villages, as it were. Treetop houses, reminiscent of wood elves that Apis would know about. Lucifrique ordered the green dragonborn that guard this village to take your weapons and to show you the ropes, as you are new guests in his treasure room. And then we mentioned in passing that on the way here we had seen a couple of undead creatures, large forest animals, maybe a bear or something, we said. Lucifrique didn't like that, and so he set off angrily out into the forest again, closing the dome behind him, and leaving us in this green dragon village. We were taken up a rope ladder to the about halfway up the tree, about 50 feet up or so, to a balcony where we were given by the green dragon in charge. We were given a skull mask to wear, Batman style, top half covered, chin exposed. It seemed from these masks that they were perhaps the skulls of dead half-green dragon children, perhaps giant rats. Then we were introduced to two elves in an alchemy lab built up in the trees. And these elves explained that their duty is to try and find or develop, research a potion, or poison if you will, that grants vulnerability to poisons. And we can infer from that Lucifrique is, with his ongoing dispute with his father, and a much older green dragon that lives elsewhere in the forest, He wants to amass enough strength to take on his father, and as yet he is not nearly of the power level to do so. But if he can find some way to develop some vulnerability poison or potion to make his father vulnerable to his dragon breath, then perhaps he will have the advantage. Also, I'm sure having vulnerability poison will help him to subjugate villagers and elves and all sorts of other manner of creatures as well. So that's what the elves are developing. You have promised to assist in whatever way you can to try and keep yourself alive in this situation. You offered these elves some of your rations, for which they were very grateful. It seems like they were rather malnourished. They were thin even for elves. And then you set off back out of the alchemist hut, back down the rope ladder to ground level, and were told to the green dragonborn on duty that you were going to go and forage. The dragonborn whispered a command to some bugs that were hiding in the walls of this dome, and the bugs left, and while you were waiting he took you on a tour of half of the dome to sort of show you that none of the walls are very penetrable. You learned that you could potentially pass through them. It would take some time and it would definitely hurt because of all the thorns and brambles, but you could theoretically pass through them as long as you had the time to do so. And then you also learned that down on ground level there is a hut. You are not to ever go within 30 feet of that hut, they say, otherwise there will be punishment. You gathered from that that's probably where they either keep your weapons that were confiscated from you, or perhaps where the dragonborn sleep, or perhaps both. At that point, the wall of the dome opened up again, and you were allowed to exit the dome out into the forest proper. And we pick up as the doorway to the dome stitches itself back together into this almost impenetrable mass of thorns and brambles. So it's about noon, you are out in the forest. What do you want to do? You also, part of Apis, recognise that Dragonborn don't usually have dark vision the way that Apis does as a dwarf, and the way that elves do as as elves. So so Apis wondered, how do the Dragonborn guards see in the darkness under the dome? There are a few lanterns and torches around, but not nearly enough for granting them the vision that they seem to have. "I'd have it better with my knife back!" you shout through the stitching doorway, to which there is no response. Detect portal. Forage for food and supplies, but our new friends need their strength if they're to help us, so we need to feed them. Foraging time. Detect portal and forage. Perception check our surroundings, make sure none of these undead creatures are around. That's easy enough done, Sasha. Let's do that one first, real quick, nice and easy. Perception check on your surroundings, nat 20. Good way to start today's session. The nat 20 perception plus your 8, I think, for forest bonus and everything. 28 perception. Let me. You guys can put a pause on what we're going to do for a second then, because I've got a lot of describing to do about what you're seeing around the immediate area. So in the immediate area you can see that not only is there a dome that is so large and wide that the area that you're standing at is essentially vertical, but you can see that for about 50 feet outside of the dome, all vegetation has been cleared. It seems like it's not only been cleared by hand and by tooth and nail, but by magic as well, perhaps. There is a clear lack of growth around this area. There is like a spongy small layer of grass on the floor for about 50 feet, but it is impossible to get, at least from the area you're standing and both directions that you're looking, it would be impossible to get closer than about 50 feet to this wall from the outside without being exposed to the elements. The grass beneath your feet is very much alive. and relatively spongy, but you don't see any other undergrowth. You don't see any weeds or small flowers or anything that would naturally be growing here. There's no diversity to the land beneath your feet for about 50 feet, almost like a fire break, I think they call it in real life, when they try and remove a portion of trees to prevent wildfires. Sort of like that. Was it Lucifer's salty attitude that stopped the plant from growing? It could well have been, yes. The next thing you see is that when the tree line does start again, it starts again. There is no like gradual change of like going back to normal. It is suddenly like deep forest again at that tree line. The dome is not flowering, no. The dome seems to be living material. But there's no flowers on it. It seems to be brambles and thorns, vines and various different branches and twigs and things. So the next thing you see is that in the tree line, the surrounding tree line doesn't have quite as high a canopy as the roof of the dome is. It's not too far beneath, but where the roof of the dome would probably be about 110, 120 feet, the roof of the surrounding canopy is probably around 100 feet, give or take. Looking into the tree line of the surrounding forest, you see no undead creatures looking out at you, no undead squirrels or larger creatures. You do, however, with the 28 perception, see that off in the distance in both directions you see a couple of green rats, giant green dragon rats, that are milling around. They're not looking at you, they're not walking around, they're not walking around you, I mean. They're just doing their business, doing what they do. You recognise that there are a couple of things moving up in the tree branches as well. That you at one point you see a green dragon squirrel come running across one branch and leap from one to another and carry on about its day. It is sort of a mid to late spring day, about midday. Let's see what the weather is like, shall we? It's starting to rain. It has started to rain, it seems. There's a sprinkling of rain that seems like it should be getting heavier. The sky is darkening. What does the air smell like? The air smells of acrid, noxious fumes. Not enough to actually cause you injury or anything, but it is not a pleasant smell. It smells kind of like burning rubber in certain areas. It's got sort of a burning sensation to it in the nose. It's not a smell that you would like to stick around for a long time. There's no green haze in the air around you, but it does actually strike that there would be a little green haze around. Not like a thick fog that you can't see through, but there is just a general sort of the further you look to one way or another, the more of the surroundings and the horizon, as it were, would seem to disappear behind green. The opacity of the green would seem to turn up. You looking at your hand, you don't see any sort of green around you, but looking to either side down this 50-foot sort of barren track around the dome, you can see that before it disappears around the dome, you can barely see it anymore because of a green haze. Do you hear birdsong? You do hear birdsong, yes. You hear some twittering. It doesn't sound exactly like a regular forest. It's not quite as loud in its ecological diversity as a regular forest of this density would be, but there are definitely birds around, and quite a lot of them. Is there anything else that you wish to know about that you would have been able to spot with a 28 perception check? Does a perception check reveal any unusual herbs in the area? You are literally standing still just outside of the dome, so from this location, no, not even with a 28 would you see any. If you want to start foraging, you can do so. I have rules for foraging. but I just want to give it to you guys to decide. Are you going to forage first, or are you going to do other things? How healthy are the trees? The trees outside the dome seem to be pretty healthy. That wouldn't be a perception check so much as a nature check. Is the river nearby? That's a good question. You do hear running water. With the 28, you can just about make out that there's some running water to the north of you. In our travels, can we keep an eye out for more undead creatures? We certainly can. Yes. Could we wear the ring as a weapon? Yes, we don't have this ring on, but we do have a metal band, just like a wedding band sort of a thing, around. I think we said our middle finger of one of our hands, so that we can channel our planar warrior into it if we need to do an unarmed strike. Anything interesting about air temperature? It seems normal for this time of year in this sort of situation of the forest. Relatively humid and nice and cool sort of temperature, around 20 degrees or so. You yell back through the dome, "Hey, how do I get back in before the deadline?" There's no response. Alright, so do we want to detect portal from here? So one of the abilities we have as a horizon walker, you can see it down in the features section over on that side of your character sheet there. One of the features you have is detect portal. You can only use it once between short rests, but it will tell you the distance and direction to the closest portal to another plane of existence within 1 mile, if one exists within 1 mile. To buff it up a little bit, I think about it in the same way as I think about the other ranger feature of primeval awareness, in that if you are, it's up to 1 mile, but if you are in your favoured terrain, it's up to 6 miles. Just, I don't feel it breaks anything, and it gives the rangers gives horizon walkers a little extra bonus. So you can choose, unlike primeval awareness, you don't choose the radius, you don't choose what portal you're looking for. You just detect portal, and if there is a portal to another plane of existence that is within 6 miles, if you're within your favoured terrain, then you'll get the direction and distance to it. Do you want to use that now, or do you want to forage for a bit, get further away from the dome, and then use it? Put a yes if you want to use it now. Put a no if you don't. If you want to do something else first before using it. It's not summer, Wraith. It is spring. We're in mid-spring. We should know if one is near the dome. Good question, yeah, good point. Get further away a bit. Yeses and nos coming in roughly equal measure here. I'll put it to an actual poll then. Forage first so we'd have something to bring back if the portal thing doesn't work. You can always short rest and do it again. You can, yes. Does using it require any component that might be seen or heard by Lucy's spies? You have done so once before, and it didn't require anything verbal or somatic from you. It just required a moment of quiet and solitude for you to sort of meditate almost for a few seconds, and then think on this portal, and then you are whipped towards it. Alright, starting a poll. Detect portal when? Right now? Outside the dome? Or go and forage for a bit first? Forage first. With 59% of the vote, Apis decides to forage for a little bit first before using this detect portal. So we start to forage. If you choose to forage for your ingredients, first, choose how long you wish to set aside for it. Longer foraging will be more successful, but may risk a hostile encounter at the DM's discretion. Then check the foraging environment table for the area that you will be foraging in, and then roll a survival check and modify as appropriate. So as we're going to loot the forest, how long are we going to set aside for foraging? Up to 1 hour, 1 to 3 hours, 3 to 5, 5 to 8, or more than 8 hours. We have already been adventuring for about 4 hours or so this day, which means that anything more than like 5 hours, you're going to start getting into potential exhaustion. It depends. Like anything more than 5 hours, it depends how things are going. This gives you a modifier. So if you don't forage for very long, you've got not much of a modifier, maybe even negative. I will also decide which foraging environment you're in. Obviously not desert or tundra, savanna or mountains, and so on, blah blah blah. I will decide which of these is appropriate for your foraging environment, which also gives you another modifier, and then I'll have you roll a survival check. And depending on how what you got in the survival, depends on how much you find. Because Detect Portal is a single action thing, I will say that you can do so at any point during this time. You don't have to go, I'm foraging for 8 hours and then I'm going to Detect Portal. Like, you can Detect Portal at any point during that time. How long until sunset? It's about midday now, and sun will set around 6:30-ish in this time of year. So you've got about 6.5-ish hours before dark, maybe 7, until twilight. Yeah, you're in a forest, so twilight, darkness comes sooner because of the canopy. My foraging rules and tables are available on my Patreon, KGladius. Anyone who is a patron of the appropriate level has access to the rules that I will be using today for foraging. We also need to forage for some food if we can. Well, thankfully, as the Outlander background, you can see in the character sheet over there, there is a feature for the Outlander that says that when you're searching for food, you can find enough for like 6 people. So I will say that you don't have to worry about keeping a track of your rations because you're out in the forest where you can be finding and scavenging nuts and seeds and berries and things. So you can have enough food for yourself and maybe 1 or 2 other people. What are we foraging for? The alchemists gave you a list of ingredients to find because they're good for potion brewing. These ingredients are Aleandol, which is a bitter herb, Cymbatrin, which is a thin brittle bark, Gumoy, which is a violet fern leaf, Mondwort, a thick greasy moss, Papau, which is a delicate fragrant petal, Remka nut, which is a teardrop-shaped nut, sea scum, which is a hardy acidic algae, and Tunzrik, which is a long woody root. Those are what's known in the potion brewing world as common ingredients. The uncommon ingredients are all berries or fruit of different sorts, and every potion needs several of the common ingredients and 1 uncommon ingredient. So you'll also be on the lookout for certain fruit. These are the uncommon ingredients. You would know a little about these things from your book on herbalism and potion brewing, which is somewhere in your thingy down here. Plants, and you've got a book on plants and a book on potions. So between the 2 of them, you've read a little bit of both. You've probably picked up on a few of these things. With the majority of the vote, Apis decides to go foraging to set aside about the next 1 to 3 hours of foraging. That will give you a bonus of that, a modifier of this. I'll say, yeah, that's probably appropriate. So let's make you a survival roll with the appropriate modifier. Let's give myself some space here. Yeah. 7. With a 7, do we want to use our inspiration down there to re-roll it, or do we want to stick with a 7? The 7 is just what we rolled on the dice. We also have a +2 from wisdom, taking it to a 9. We've got a +3 from survival, because we're proficient in it, taking us to a 12. And we've got another +3 from forest bonus, taking us to a 15. So even though we rolled a 7, we've got a 15 total. Do we want to stay with a 15, or do we want to use inspiration? Put a yes or no. Do you want to use inspiration? Yes or no? Alright, people saying no, stick with the 15. Alright, so with a 15... we can find 1d6 common ingredients. On our 3-hour journey around the forest, we're going to find 1d6 ingredients. 4. We are going to get to pick 4 of the common ingredients. We're not doing a stellar job of searching, and so we spend 3 hours looking, and we managed to find 4 of the ingredients. Do you want Aleandol, Cymbatrin, Gumoy, Mondwort, Papau, Remkanut, Sea Scum, or Tunzrik? The potion book that Apis has on them, it does give you it doesn't give you the recipe to make one, because it's like a beginner's guide to potions. It's about the book is about potion making, not a recipe book for potions. If you understand the difference, it's like a book about cooking rather than a cookbook. if that makes sense to you. It's not a recipe book. So we find one portion of each of those 4 things. It does give us, in that potion book, the knowledge that for a potion of light healing you need A, C, G and T, which is Aliandol, Simbatrin, Gumoy and Tunzrik. So if you wanted to make a potion of healing, you would take those 4, and then you have enough to make 1 batch of potion of healing. However, if you wanted, for instance, to make a potion of climbing, you need C, M, R and T. For a potion of comprehension, you need A, M, R and S, and so on. So do we just find 1 portion of each of them enough to make a potion of healing or a potion of comprehension? What do we want? Do we find 3 or so people's worth of food? Yes. For the food, we find the food as we're searching for those 3 hours, we'll find enough rations to like 3 days worth of rations, I'll say. So enough for us for 3 days, or enough for us and 2 other people for 1 day. We were just sent to find stuff. That is a good point. We were just sent to find stuff. So we find a lot of people saying the healing stuff. So I'll say that on the way, we managed to come across one of the Simbatrin trees that has just enough bark on it for one portion of it. You tear it off and harvest it. You don't have your hunting knife on you, but you use the giant boar tusk to sort of scrape away. You're still wearing the dragon bone skull mask as well while you're out and about. You find your Simbatrin, thin brittle bark. Tear some of it off and stick it in the bag over your shoulder. Another half hour or so later, you come across a patch of wild growing Aliandol, bitter herbs, and you test them in. Oh yeah, that's definitely Aliandol. You take some of that, harvest it much as you can, tear it up out of the ground. Not too much longer, you find a couple of the shriveled up violet ferns that have dropped off the ground, so you know that you're getting close, and hunting around for that another 10 minutes or so, you find some of these ferns overhanging that's got this violet sheen to it underneath. Managed to tear some of that off and harvest some gumoy. And eventually you come across some long woody roots under the ground. You see the telltale signs that you're reading up in the book about how to find Tunzrik and how to identify it. And you find enough of those signs that you know that there's some Tunzrik somewhere in the area. Again, with that boar's tusk, you sort of dig, push away at some of the soil, loosen it up with the boar tusk, and then scoop it out with your hands until eventually you come across some root. And this one takes the longest to actually harvest, but eventually kind of pulling and back and forth, stabbing it with the boar tusk. It's very difficult to do without a bloody sharpened knife to use, but it takes you the most part of your 3 hours that you've allocated for yourself. And eventually some Tunzrik comes off in your hand, and you've got enough for 1 batch, 1 potion. During that 3 hours of foraging, you're also finding berries, nuts and seeds that are edible, some leaves, some sort of salad leaves, and you're stuffing your bag full of that sort of things as well, just to keep yourself fed, nibbling on some of it as you go. At some point you also want to detect portal, right? How long into the 3 hours how long into the 3 hours do you detect the portal? Let's put a poll. After half an hour, all the way up to 2.5 hours. And have you been foraging in a particular direction? Have you been foraging just in the circle around the dome? What do you reckon you guys have been doing? Would Apis have gone to see how far they can get away from the dome? To see if they're being watched? To see if at some point they'll be brought back and told not to go any further? Or will you not have pushed your luck and you'll have stayed close to the dome? What do you guys reckon? Can we do a perception check to see if we're being watched? Sure. As you are foraging, 11 plus your 8 perception, you pretty confident that you're being watched, yes. You look around yourself, you're never in an area where there aren't birds or rodents around. I think we shouldn't go super far from the dome, not on our first outing. Go in the direction of the undead animal we saw. Detect portal is it's an action to cast. Yeah, it happens instantly. Alright, so with 64% of the vote, people have voted either 2 or 2.5 hours. So about 2 hours, just over 2 hours into it. Apis decides, so just after finding that third ingredient, I suppose. Apis takes a second to just sit down on a log and look around. You see that there are birds in the trees. They seem to be acting relatively normally. You wouldn't know necessarily by looking at them that they're spies for a dragon. Apis wonders for a moment whether it's whether they're telepathically communicating with the dragon, or whether the dragon can literally see through them as eyes and ears. You sort of look back the way you come. And you think, I think I can get away with it. And so you close your eyes. And you just try and take a moment to rest. And think. Think about what it feels like to Misty Step, to use that ethereal plane to transport yourself from one plane to another, one place to another. You try and remember, though you can't, what it would have felt like to step from the material plane to the Shadowfell, or from the Shadowfell to the Feywild, and what it felt like to come back through the tree once the Merry Gentleman brought you back. You can't exactly remember, but you do feel like you can remember it. You do remember the dreams that you had more recently, though, of the Merry Gentleman talking to you about the energies that make up the universe, the fundamental building block of magic known as force, and how that force energy feels when you become a conduit for it. You try and imagine what would it be like if that prickly sort of sensation was not in your body, but was instead a doorway to another place. And before you open your eyes, you can feel the wind is picking up. It makes you open your eyes wondering what has changed about the clearing that you're sitting in. And you're no longer sitting in the clearing, instead you're moving at great speed. You're moving at great speed towards the north by northwest. And you're zipping past trees at an alarming rate, like you're an arrow that's been fired from a bow. You move like this for a good few seconds, maybe 10, 20 seconds. Before suddenly, as though an arrow is slammed into a tree, you come to a grinding halt. And you're standing on the edge of a cliff. It's a large ravine that runs through the forest. You look down over the edge of the cliff, and you can see that there is a large winding river below, far below. The wind rushes down that ravine. And then in an instant, as though pulled by the nape of the neck, you are shot back through the trees. Back to your direction. And you slam back down, sitting on the log that you were sitting on, knowing the direction was north by northwest, and knowing that the distance was about 5.5 miles. Where are we at in relation to the dome? Good question. Whereabouts are you in relation to the dome, everybody? How far away would you have gotten from the dome? Can we thank Altamez? We certainly can, yes. You thank Altamez, you grab a couple of straight twigs and snap off some of the branching parts off of the edge of the twig. You get them as straight as you can, trying to emulate an arrow as best you can. You cross them over in thanks to Altamez and his crossed arrow symbol. Let's just roll a religion check to see how well you do. 17 plus religion 3, so a dirty 20. Pretty good. Pretty good. You feel like you've done a pretty good job of emulating his symbol as best you can under the circumstances of not actually having arrows. You say a little prayer to him, just muttered to yourself, as in thanks for all that he's done for you. Kelsa thinks you're within a kilometre of the dome. Maybe 2 miles of wandering and foraging. Let me show you how much you can go in that time. Distance covered by travelling in terrain. You are in what's called tricky wilderness. You are travelling for 1 hour at a speed of about 25 because of Apis' speed. 1 hour takes you about 2 miles. So you can cover at most 2 miles per hour, but that's if you're not foraging. It's about half that if you're foraging and things. So about 1 mile per hour is about what you would have covered at most. So this is about 2.5 hours into it, so you can be at most 2.5 miles from the dome as you are. We can move without difficult terrain after an hour. Good point. You are a ranger and can move without difficult terrain after an hour. It's true. So that would take it from being tricky wilderness to being cross-country, essentially. Taking it to about 2.5 miles. So yeah, I'll say you can forage. You don't get forest. Yeah, you've got forest bonuses and things. So yeah, you couldn't. Apis can have travelled at least at most like 4 miles from the dome if you wanted to go like straight away from the dome. Otherwise, you've somewhere been. You are around the dome if you wanted to be. So which direction did you guys go foraging? One of the cool dice that I bought recently, one of the cool novelty dice, is a D8 with the 8 cardinal directions on it, which is pretty cool. So you could just roll for it if you want. Should we roll for it, or do you want to decide? Do you spiral outwards from the dome? Use the new dice. Trust the dice. Let's do it. I'll roll a direction on my directional dice. Here it is, look. And I'll roll for each half hour, let's say. So you set off from the dome in an easterly direction. I'm going to write this down. You set off east. After about half an hour, you ended up travelling south. That's an hour. After an hour and a half, you continued south. It's an hour and a half. The next half hour, you went west. That's 2 hours. That's about the time that you went. North by northwest, there was a thing to about about 5.5 miles. Do I need to retcon that now? Nah, it's close enough. That's fine. No retconning. And then you went southwest. So that's 2.5 hours. You found your Tunsrick, and then you went north. So after about 3 hours, you know, with your Ranger Outlander abilities, that the dome would be somewhere to the north-ish of you. So the dice agreed with you that you should spiral around the dome and not go too far. It is probably around 3 or so in the afternoon at this point. What do you guys want to do now? Do you want to keep foraging? Do you want to head back to the dome? What would we recover with a short rest? The ability to detect portals would come back on a short rest. We should go towards the portal, check it out. Go back to the dome. What do you guys think? Forage some more. Alright, let's put this to a poll. Do you forage more out here, judged by the directional dice, just at random, see what you can see out here? Do you forage your way towards the portal to sort of see what's out that direction? Do you forage your way back towards the dome? Or do you forage your way over towards where you saw the undead to the west of here? Do we know where his horde is? No, we do not. we do not think it's in the dome. We've been around the dome, both inside and a little bit on the outside, and we're pretty sure it's not in the dome itself. But where he sleeps and where he keeps his treasure hoard, if he's got one, in fact, he should have one, but we haven't seen it, or we don't know for sure. It would be elsewhere. Low on spells and meeting undead seems not too much fun. No weapons on us. We've got 3 spell slots remaining. No, we've still got 3 spell slots remaining and 1 inspiration. With 65% of the vote, Apis decides we're going to forage our way back towards the dome now. Alright, so with a less than 1 hour time spent foraging, you're going to get that modifier. But you're going to get that modifier for being in a forage environment, which means that you're going to roll a survival check. 17 plus survival being a +8. That is still a very good amount of foraging on your way back to the dome. So taking you to a 25 with a 25 on your survival check. Oh boy, you actually find some uncommon ingredients on your way back. You did a much better job in the last hour of searching than you did on your first 3 hours of searching. That roll was way better. Yeah, and that was with a 0 modifier from your time spent foraging as well. Because up to 1 hour you get a -4 modifier. Because you're not going to get very much in only 1 hour spent foraging. Usually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus 5. That's 10. You find 10 more common ingredients. So you find 1 more of each and 2 more of something else. So you now have 2 of each of the ACGT, and you have 1 of each of the other things, and then let's say 1 more Mondwort and 1 more Remkanut. So you've got 2 of everything except sea scum. So on your way, like as soon as you get to this point and you have just finished the Tunzrik and you're like, okay, what to do now? And you sort of look around and you're like, oh, isn't that? And you walk over to it and it's like a thick grassy moss, and you look into your book and oh, that's Mondwort. It's right here. I might as well take some of that. You take some Mondwort with you. Got used to this particular part of the woods, it seems. Yes, you certainly did. So you went northeast from there, trying to find your bearings. You're not 100% sure where you are, so you just know it's to the north-ish. And then, because you rolled so well, a 25 actually gives you a 25 gives you a D4 of the uncommon ingredients as well. 3. Nice. So you find 3 of the uncommon ingredients. Do you want the Aranas, which is a very viscous, sort of a bitter tasting berry that is required for the potion of climbing? It's like a chewy, almost like gelatinous kind of berry. Do you want Doreen, which is a potion of animal kinship? It is a fruit that's required for a potion of animal kinship. Do you want the Finek bean, which is required for a potion of watchful rest? A Flonenberry, which is required for a potion of light healing. They look like good berries. They're tiny little vanilla bean pods inside of a bean pod. Do you want the Lebab? Lebab is required for a potion of comprehension. A long, sort of oblong-looking berry. The Olai. The Olai is a very greasy, oily kind of olive fruit that is required for an oil of slipperiness. The Pestripato. Pestripato is required for a potion of breathing. Or a Veinaberry. Veinaberry is required for a potion of moderate healing. Should we roll for it? Yeah, we found more rations as well. I'll roll to see how many rations you find on your way back. I'll say that with an hour, finding 10 ingredients and fit 13 different ingredients, you're not going to have time to find much in the way of food. Let's roll for it, eh? Let's roll for it. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 options on there. Let's see what we find. 4. You find the flonenberry for the light healing. There you go. You also find 5. You find 5 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 labab. You find a labab bean, which is useful for a potion of comprehension. And what's that? Another 5. You find 2 lababs and a flonenberry. Nice. Unfortunately, 25 is not enough to find any unique ingredients, any of the rare ingredients useful for even greater potions and things. And then how many other rations do you find? I'm going to roll a d4 plus 1 rations. On your way back, lucky bastard, you found 5 more rations as well. So you've got 8 rations now, extra to what you already had. I'll say that because we weren't keeping track of it, because Apis just keeps enough rations on them, I'll say you already had like 5, you gave 2 to the elves, you had like 3 left, you've eaten 1 today, 2 left, another 5, you've got 7 rations. I'm going to keep that number, on here now. Normally I don't keep a track of your rations because you're an outlander, but in this situation, for reasons, it's going to be worth keeping a track of. So on your way back, pretty good, very good in fact, very, very good indeed. You found a significant amount of all kinds of stuff. On your way back you found that there were actually that's going to tie in pretty well. Yeah, that makes sense. Alright, you I was going to tie this in later, but it makes sense now because you rolled so well. Makes sense. You find some of the Mondwort, and your nose leads you to finding the very delicate fragrant petal, papau. And you feel like you must be pretty close to the dome now, and you've still got like another 2.5 hours or so of light easily. When you come across a little garden almost, it looks like a herb garden. There's a little rockery that's got this sea scum growing around the sides, and you identify it with your herb book, and you're like, oh, that's it, and you start to harvest some of that. You find a few more items in there, and then there's a little bush in the corner that you identify, and you're pretty sure it's a flonenberry. It's like a little red berries that when used together can be prepared in such a way that they can provide healing to creatures that eat them. Similar to how good berries do as well, but flonenberries are naturally grown, whereas good berries are druidically made to kind of like emulate a flonenberry. As you're starting to harvest this bush of berries, there's a call from behind. Hey! Stop that! Get out! And you sort of spin around, and you see that there's an elven man standing there with a dragon skull mask over his face and green robes below his shoulders. And he's pointing a hunting knife towards you. He's about 20 feet away. Get out! Get out! Stop it! What do you say? What? Why? Who are you? Stop what? We're foraging for Lord Lucifreak. And at that, there's like I see. I didn't see your mask before. I didn't know that. Who are you? Sorry, I thought this was wild. I was told to forage, and I came out to forage. I didn't. You thought that beads of nourishment just grow wild, do you? What? Those berries you're taking, you thought they just grow wild, without cultivation? I thought so. I'm sorry. I was sent to forage, and I'm new. That's fine. This is farmed. We try to cultivate as much as we can so that so that Ilator and Thanala don't have to forage quite so hard. Who are you? What's your name? Sorry. I don't want any trouble, man. Just trying to survive. Are you all right? You seem to belong to Lord Lucifreak. I'm gonna roll you an insight check with disadvantage because of the mask. Hard to read a face beneath the mask. 11 plus insight, 13. Even with the mask, you get that he didn't enjoy your wording there, that he belongs to Lord Lucifreak, but he didn't say anything. He didn't pull you up on it or say anything, which for an elf would be quite showing quite the restraint, it seems. I'm sorry, it's my first day. I didn't know the place yet. Are you hungry? We've found food while we've been out. I'm Apis, by the way. Apis. My name's Apis. Well, Apis, it seems you haven't been given the proper introductions yet. I'm Anuran. I'm one of the farmers here. I farm the food for the village and some of the cultivation for the forages. This is not to be harvested by people who don't know what they're doing. Come, please get out of my garden. Sorry, I don't mean to offend. This is all very new to me. Understandably. I'm sorry for snapping. I know that this is perhaps a difficult position. Where did you come from? You get out of his garden. Yeah, I assumed you stand up and you walk towards him, cover the distance a little, and step out from. And there's no like defining features necessarily around the garden. There's no fence that made it an obvious garden. Looking around, you can kind of tell that it is like a cultivated area, but it does, to the most part, look like it's regular undergrowth of the forest. It just seems like it's not undergrowth. Sorry, the undergrowth has been cleared away, but it seems like regular terrain of the forest. It's not like he's created flower beds or anything. It's he's planted things where they fit between trees, and all of the weeds and undergrowth has been cleared, but everything else is still like he hasn't cleared out the trees to make room or anything. Is there anything else I can do to mend my mistake? We were tasked with foraging. You can check what we did. You can know what we're doing, and you start to bring out some of the things from your bag. Says it's fine. I believe you. Where are you from? Do you spend a lot of time here outside then? Yes, my wife and I live out here. Do you need anything that I can forage for you? Let me see what you've got. It might be able to replenish some of our herb gardens. You start to lay them out. We've managed to find quite a bit of this stuff, and it was what was this one? Mosswort or something? Mondwort. Mondwort is useful. Yes, I've got some growing about 300 yards that way. I'm trying to cultivate it as much as possible. I could do with maybe one of this and one of that, and he takes a couple of the items and says, "Yes, that will do." You and you continue being apologetic, and he's like, "It's fine. We came from Fonderg after he started taking treasures from the town." I see. Well, I'm sorry for. And you see him stop and look around himself. You are lucky to end up here. Can any of this be cultivated? He says, yes. Usually for cultivation you need significant portions of it to begin the garden, and then if you tend to it every day, it can yield more. But if you fail to tend to it properly every day, then it needs topping up in the way that you've provided me for here. I can take some of this and top up some of my garden. In mechanical terms, if you want to cultivate, blah blah blah, you have to acquire the ingredients as above. You can use 4 portions of one ingredient to start a garden for it. Each ingredient garden requires a daily wisdom nature check, DC 10, and 15 minutes of attention to maintain it. If you fail, you must spend another portion of that ingredient to patch up your work within 24 hours, or that garden will die. After 1 week of successful checks, each garden can be harvested for 1 portion per day, as long as the garden remains there. So you can garden it, you can cultivate it. You have to acquire the ingredients either through foraging or buying it or whatever, and then you can start to plant them and cultivate them, which it seems is what he's been doing for a while. But the garden he has is relatively small. And Uran, if you give me that knife, it'll be more effective in my hand than yours. He steps back from you, notably, and takes the knife and says, I do not know you, stranger. If we show that we won't run, chances of us getting back outside are looking good if these elves are allowed out regularly. Tell him where we grew up and that we have been spending time around Shadridge and recently some time in Fondog. We say we've been spending time in Fondog, but we're not actually from there. I'm kind of a ranger growing up in the south of here. I spent a little time to the north in Shadridge, and He doesn't react or talk about. He doesn't react or notably move or anything, or display any sort of recognition in his eyes when we talk about Shadridge. He does know Fondog though. And then I moved to Fondog just relatively recently. Not moved there. I just happened to be in Fondog when all of this started going down. It's strange here outside the dome, isn't it? I feel like I'm watched all the time. You are. He's watching us. Yes. Okay. Lord Lucifreak must really trust you to allow you being outside the dome. I've never yet done anything to betray his trust in me, nor my wife, and we wish to keep it that way. I think you should be leaving now. And Aaron, what happens if you don't wear the masks in these woods in the dome? You should keep your mask on. Yeah, I have. What happens if we don't? The same thing that happens if you disobey any of his orders. And that is random. What do you mean? He takes out his displeasure in different ways. It is impossible to predict how he will react. You should keep your mask on. Right. Of course, I didn't mean to offend. I just wish to know how to survive in this place. Do as you're told. Right. Okay. Have a good day then. Stay away from my garden. As you're leaving. Let me know if I can forage anything more for your garden, your little herb patches. So that wasn't a flonenberry. No, these are beads of nourishment. There was a wild patch of flonenberries I saw earlier today, about 100 yards to the west of here, and next to a large rock behind a tree. It seemed to be wilting. If you get there fast, I'm sure you can harvest some. Thank you. You should mark the trees that are around his garden. If you want to, yeah, you can do that. Are there, as you're walking away, are there other things I should stay away from? He doesn't answer, but he walks closer to you, and he says, "We're not meant to talk unless spoken to. They seem to turn a blind eye to it outside of the dome, but I still do not like raising my voice outside. Try not to call out." And then he leans real close and says, I'm sorry that you are in this position. And as he leans close and just says that alone, there's a bird comes down and like drive-bys essentially across the side of his head. And he pulls back and says, apologise. And then turns and walks back towards his garden. We turn and walk away in the direction that he mentioned to the west. And before long, we managed to find that rock with the flonan berries on it, and we managed to harvest enough flonan berries for one portion of the potion of light healing. And so we make our way back to the dome at that point. Did we ask about the dead zone by the dome? We did not. No. Is there a way to talk to the guards? It's too late now. You kind of pissed him off by asking for his knife, and out of the blue as a complete stranger, and so he's not interested in talking anymore. It seems like this guy. From your let me roll an insight check just as a general insight as to that whole interaction and what you picked up from it. 3 plus your wisdom of 2, so you've got a 5 for your insight. With his mask on and him being a stranger and a stranger of a different culture, it was hard to pick up. You managed to pick up that he was uncomfortable around you, and that's about it. Why did we ask him for his knife? Because Apis. Are there still hybrid rats around the dome? Yes, there are, and not just around the dome either. During the 5 hours that you've been out, about 4 hours that you've been out now. There have been occasions that we have stumbled across like a half-green dragon creature, usually a rat or a squirrel. Well, dang, the birds are even reporting conversations. I think we need to mutter aloud about how useful that knife would have been for harvesting as we gather stuff. Yeah, Apis, as they gather in the flonan berries, they're like, well, that bloody having a hunting knife would make this a lot easier. I'd be able to actually harvest ingredients. If Lucifreak wants us to harvest things so that we can actually make this vulnerability potion poison thing, then we should have been given access to the hunting knives so that I can actually use it. Just kind of muttering to yourself, but loud enough that any birds or rodents around might be able to hear. Use primeval awareness of dragons on the hybrids. Do we want to do that? It's a good idea. It might be a chance to actually determine once and for all whether or not the hybrids ping as a dragon under dragon awareness. Could we ask if the guards could give us a knife when we take with us when we're foraging and return when we're back with the dome? We definitely can ask that when we get back into the dome. Can we grind the tusk into a knife? It's potential, but it might be like one of these try and keep it to yourself deals. What components for the spell? So this particular spell, this detect, what is it called? Primeval awareness. This primeval awareness it costs a spell slot, but it's not a spell. So primeval awareness doesn't cost any spell components. It does just take up one of your spell slots. And again, it's just an action to cast. You just close your eyes and think about the animal or the type of creature that you're interested in knowing about, and you define the radius. And then if there is one of those creatures within the radius, it tells you yes. Alright, so everybody's saying yes, we should use primeval awareness. So we, on our way back to the dome, we know that we must be close if that farm's nearby, and sure enough, it's only about a 5-minute walk or so through the woods before we recognise the area. And oh yeah, this is where we came in when we were riding on the back of the mole. You approach the area of the nearby the dome, and you can see a rat about 100 yards to your about 100 feet to your right. You make your way over to it, getting closer and closer, and as you get closer it stops and looks out towards you. It's about 60 feet away, and so you feel what it felt like to have the dragon right up in your grill with its teeth bared, and the chance that it's going to devour one of your limbs very high. You think about the moment that you contemplated that you might have gotten yourself and Briar and Mel all killed by your actions, and how it felt like a whole week went by in the blink of an eye. You think about dragons in general and what you know about them. You think about the draconic language You focus on that feeling that you have in your body when you think of dragons. And you set the radius at just after the green dragon, green dragon rat, about 65 feet from you. You get a very strong sense of yes. A strong sense of recognition of that same feeling in your body. You get a ping saying yes. There is something that would be classified as a dragon within 65 feet of you, as you and this dragon rat stare down at each other. You look around, checking the radius of you. Within about 65 feet there is the wall to the dome, about 50 feet away. You look back, you don't see any other creatures. You look up to the trees, you see a couple of birds and insects. You're pretty sure that this rat would be the thing that's pinging, but there's nothing to say that something on the other side of that dome wall wouldn't have pinged. It could be that a dragon is sitting on a shoulder in the form of a bug. That is definitely a possibility. Let's step 10 feet away from the dome wall and do it again then. I mean, you can do so if you want to. That was one of your 3 spell slots for the day. Do you want to use one more of your last 2 spell slots for the day to do it again? Do we know a number of creatures that pings? Nope, not with Primeval Awareness. You just get a yes. Yes or a no. You don't learn number or direction. You just learn, are there creatures of that type in the area, in the radius? No, do not do it again. Go to the river. The river would be to the north, and you're on the south end of this wall. Well, by now you're at the south end of this wall. The river would be to the north end. You still have time, though, in the day. It is not yet dark. Do you want to go and check out the river to the north of town? It's around about 4 in the afternoon. You are at the dome rather. You have been exploring for about 8 hours of the day. You could probably fit another hour or 2 in before I start making exhaustion checks. It's been a long, stressful day of adventuring. Alright, let's put it to a poll then. You've gone grocery shopping, now you've got to go home and put it all away. Alright, with 67% of the vote, Apis decides we're going back into the dome. Or at least we're going to try. You walk across the 50-foot sort of spacing outside of the dome, and you approach the outside, and you say, I've come back. I've foraged. I've come back to the You see that the rat that was to our right, 60 feet, starts to move towards you. I want to go back inside. Please, Lord Luciferic. Open sesame. You speak in Draconic. Lord Luciferic, I've returned from my foraging. May I enter? The dragon rat sort of stops when he hears you speaking. You are not meant to speak. My apologies. Right here. The rat turns and walks off into the forest. You stand there and wait, listening to the gentle twittering of the birds nearby. You look at the vegetation wall in front of you, very thick and overgrown. Also, as you are standing right next to it, real close, teeming with bugs. There are a lot of insects in this wall, like aphids and ladybirds and grasshoppers maybe, and all kinds of just creepy crawlies throughout this wall of and that's just one random section of it that you happen to be standing next to. Hold out a hand for tiny bugs. Hold out a hand to them. Roll an animal handling check. You are proficient in animal handling, and it pertains to being in a forest, so you do have a +8 to it. 3 + 8, 11. put out your hands, and a few of the bugs, like a couple of the crawlers, crawl up onto your finger from a nearby branch, and just like inch their way along. Find a little fuzzy caterpillar that's crawling along your arm. So as you're looking down at this little fuzzy caterpillar, there is a tearing in the vegetation to your left, about 30-40 feet. And you look across there and you see this archway has opened up. Knowing that it closes pretty quickly because you've already experienced this sort of archway twice already, you get a wriggle on, you move that way and get through the wall, and about 30 seconds later it starts to stitch itself back up again, and with it the darkness overtakes once more. And although it is only like 4 in the evening, it feels like a lot later inside. You look up and see with your dark vision that the treetop village above has a few people coming out to the edges of the balconies and things and looking down, and then seeing that it's not Luciferique, turning and leaving. You are also met by the sound of an approaching green dragonborn. The green dragonborn approaching is Enola, the female dragonborn that greeted you the first time you arrived. And she again has shield in one hand and spear in the other. Ah, you are done foraging. What do you say? Put the bug back. You turn around and put your hand out, and the little creepy crawly, he's crawled down up one finger and across the knuckles and crawls down the third and crawls back onto a branch. Adopt a submissive posture. You sort of put your head down towards you don't have to put your head down too far because you're already a dwarf. You nod. Well, you are successful. You may speak. I am speaking to you. Yes. For the glory of Lord Luciferique, I have returned. Let me roll a general sort of charisma check to see how well you are doing at your flattery and subservience. Relatively low DC given the circumstances. 14 plus 1 for charisma. So you're doing a good job of it. You're doing a good job of like, you're showing subservience. You show forwards your bag of ingredients, and she says, take it off. You take this satchel bag off and hold it out. Put it down. You put it down on the floor and then step away. She comes over and opens the flap of your bag with the tip of her spear. Grabs the satchel strap with the spear and holds it up, and then pulls the front of it towards her. She's got the shield on, so she'd have to put that down. She takes her shield off, throws it to the ground by her feet, resting up against her leg, and then she takes the claw and looks in the bag. Seems you are quite the forager. You are skilled in foraging. You are experienced in it. Yes. Very well. She hands the bag back to you on the tier tip, the spear tip, and says, "Take it to Leandra and Alethi. Say, if I may, I would have been able to forage more if I had some sort of implement, some sort of tool for it. There were many times I needed to cut elements that I did not have access to. I had a hunting knife when I came in, if I could." And she says, "Do you think we are stupid?" And takes 2 steps towards you. No, far from it. I was merely going to suggest if I had an implement that I could use, that I could check out when I leave for foraging, and check back in with you when I arrive back. Prove you are trustworthy. Then we may consider giving you some implements. Take your ingredients to Leandra and Alethi. Right away. You grab your bag back, put it over your shoulders, and start heading back towards the centre of the town. And she says, "They're in that one," and points to you still have to go up the main rope ladder. There's only one rope ladder up into the canopy, but once you're up there, there's lots of bridges connecting each of the different, about a dozen or so buildings. She points to one of them that's kind of out on the edge. It's not too far from the. In fact, it would be the next one down from the alchemist hut that you went to earlier today. You take a knee as she parts ways and points you the direction. You say, "Thank you, kind and merciful Lord, highest among the servants of Luciferique." She says, "You keep that sort of doting for Luciferique, where it belongs." Right, you are. Sorry. And you climb up the rope ladder. She leaves towards the hut that you were told not to get close to. There are rocks and stones on the forest floor, like not all over the place, not an abundance of them, but you'd be able to find a few yet, if you wanted a few pebbles. You climb up the rope ladder, back onto the canopy bridges, and make your way past the alchemist's hut. As you're passing the alchemist's hut, you recognise the woman from before, Capona, at the door. As you walk past, she sort of looks behind you and then says in almost a whisper as you pass, "Were you successful?" And what do you say? Watch around as we go, looking for Charlie, Cassandra, and Briar. I'll make a perception check for you, and I'll bounce it again so that it stays in the. Oh, nice! Perception is pretty good. It's going to be in the 20s. As you move, you do not see Briar. You do not see Cassandra. But as you've arrived on top, right before getting to this alchemist place, you sort of glance over, and about 3 trees from you, via rope bridges, you recognise Charlie. Charlie is a druid from the town of Fonderg, a Bridden male, Bridden being a half elf, half human. A Bridden male. He's young. He's relatively fit and healthy and active. And he too is wearing one of these skull masks, and he watches you climb. There's sort of a nod from him as he sees you, but he just stands there and watches. He's standing at the balcony, just kind of like looking out. You walk towards where you were told to give the ingredients to. You nod yes to Capona when she asks, "Were you successful?" And you continue on past. You see for yourself. You sort of nod and show her the bag, and she nods in acknowledgement. You continue on past the alchemist's hut and over the rope bridge towards the other hut. As you approach the other hut, you enter a much sort of narrower but taller building. That has 2 floors on it. There's a set of stairs off to the left that lead up to a sort of a mezzanine almost floor. And up on the mezzanine floor you can see, even from coming in, that there's just a series of chests and crates, just about half a dozen of them or so. And down here on this floor is 2 or 3 barrels and just piles of stuff in the centre of the room, piles of different ingredients, not massive things, just like small, this sort of size piles of ingredients, and just various different vegetation matter. You see that there are two women, 2 elves in here that you assume from the Dragonborn telling you is Leandra and Alethi. Both of them wearing similar sort of similar elven robes and dragon skull masks. And they look up as you enter through the door. There is no like closable door on these huts. It's just a doorway. You enter the doorway, and they look up, and then one of them stands to their feet. "You are the new one." You nod. What do you say? Does Charlie look starved? You didn't get to see. I mean, you got a 20-something, so you'd probably see that he was too far away and had to. No, he's only been here for like a couple of days at most, so he didn't look very starved. Charlie is said to have planned his escape. What if he does something rash and expects us to follow along? It's a possibility. Try and subtly signal to Charlie before we enter. All right. What would this be? This is going to be you're trying to get your point across to somebody using hand signals and things from a distance and subtly. Definitely feels like a sleight of hand check. But is it like an intelligence-based sleight of hand or charisma-based? I think it's like you're trying to communicate something to him, so I feel like it's a charisma-based sleight of hand check. Yeah. I feel like it's charisma-based sleight of hand check here. You are not proficient in sleight of hand, so it's just going to be a straight roll. Charisma. 12. With a 12, you kind of like, you get to the doorway of this thing and you kind of just like do this sort of thing to him. And you hope that he understands what you're trying to mean by it. You walk in and they say, "Who are you?" And you're the new one. And you say, "I've returned. I was foraging. Here's what I've gathered." And you open up your bag. You take out some of the ingredients, the ones that weren't kept by the farmer outside. I managed to find more, but Eneron kept it. I met Eneron outside. And they say, "Ah, I see. So Eneron, you've kept quite a lot here. This is impressive. Are you a forager before you came here?" In a way, yes. I see. You've done a great service for us. Thank you. We will get to sorting this now. Please put them over here. And they sort of uncover a little bit of space on the floor beside some of these piles. And you see that what they're doing is basically sorting out all the different things that are brought to them, sorting and preparing the ingredients. Please put them here. Well, what was your name, stranger? Apis. Well, unfortunate circumstances for your arrival, Apis, but we selfishly are glad you are here, if you are such a prolific forager. Have you met Ilitor, Thanala, and Irva yet? I haven't met Ilitor, Thanala, and Irva yet, but I heard from Eneron. He mentioned Ilitor and Thanala. Right. Yes. They are foragers. They spend most of their time outside of the dome. But you would do well to meet them and coordinate your foraging. I'm sure they will be happy to have help. Yeah, I've picked up a few useful skills here and there. Do you think I can forage again tomorrow? Is it? Yes, that the foragers will forage every day and try their best to find ingredients. When preparing potions, one requires a lot of ingredients. The things that you've brought may not be fruitful. They may not end up being useful for alchemical purposes. It takes a lot of doing to brew successfully, and when you are creating on the frontiers of understanding, magical understanding, as Capona is doing, it can take even more. Right? I'm familiar with working in a forest. I've spent a lot of my life in the trees. I'll be happy to keep foraging for you. Do you know there's gardens out there? Yes, Inarin and Jane are farmers. They cultivate a few of the things, but it's not enough to keep us up. And we do not have, unfortunately, many with their experience in herbalism. So it takes some time to create and cultivate, and it turns out to be much more fruitful to just forage when we have so few farmers. I have friends here. Do you think I can speak with them? They look at each other and say, we would recommend... One of them stands up and walks towards the doorway. He says, please, come on in. We will show you some of the work that we do. And as they've sort of walked to put their hand behind you and lead you inside, they've actually gotten a better view of outside. They say, we would recommend that you try and put a distance between yourself and your friends. Over here we have a barrel of dried herbs. We have the smaller barrel over here. The next one is the roots. The way that you prepare those is she starts to just like lead you through a few of the specifics of the roots, and you're close enough to say why keep a distance. Friends, one way that if you have... The other one comes over and says, if you have friends, you can be hurt. Do not show them who your friends are. Investigation roll to see how hungry these two are. This would be a medicine check. 17 plus your medicine rolled well there. Plus 2 for medicine because you're not proficient in it. With a 19, you can tell that these two are pretty hungry. They look like they are thin even for elves. Did we do the blood donor thing yet? No, we have not yet, Cinderfingers. We've not given blood yet to this to the alchemists. We just went foraging for them instead. Thank you, DM, for Higher AU, for gifting a sub to the community. Very generous. Can we check if they're lying, exaggerating, or on the dragon's side? That would be an insight check. That is a 5 plus 2 for insight. That is a 7. Again, with elves being raised in a different culture, and for the fact that they are complete strangers to us, and they're wearing masks over the top half of their face, it's very difficult to read them. They seem to be sincere, but we can't read them one way or another. I'm trying to keep the peace in here. Some of my friends believe in their own strength, and they'll use it. Trying to calm them down. And the one that came over second goes... You talk of Charlie? Yes. Charlie's not long for this dome if he keeps going the way he is. He's headstrong. He's very human in that respect. Afraid of his own mortality. Not willing to see things through and let things play out. Right. Well, if I can talk to him, perhaps I can make him, you know. And the other one says, fall in line. Hey, perhaps it would be wise to speak with him, but try to do so. It's a tough balance to find. You want to not seem like you're speaking in hushed voices and plotting. They can be quite paranoid. But at the same time, you don't want to speak so out in the open that you seem to be defying their rules. Speaking as we are now in the privacy of our own houses is fine. Speaking in hushed voices is due to draw attention. It's a fine balance. We actually just asked them what the food situation here is. It's strange that they would have such shortage considering they are foragers. Can I ask about the food situation here? They both kind of glance at each other and... Yes, what about it? You have, what was it, 3 foragers and 2 farmers? Yes. How many people live here? Says, well, at the last count there would be, including you, I think 19. Perhaps 20 now. What? There was 2 came in with you, right? 2 came in with me, yes. So 20, I think. And is there enough food to go around? There is enough food to go. They both seem a little nervous. There is we have enough food to survive. Does that include the Dragonborn? And they have enough food to survive. But is the 20 including the Dragonborn? No, that is 20 of us, and I think. Let me see how much they know. Oh, very good. I think there are 5 Dragonborn, maybe 6. I think perhaps, and they have enough as well. Do they eat the same supply of food? Yes. And they get to eat first? Yes. I see. I found some rations here. And you take some of the food out of your bag. Give them some food, 2 or 3 of our rations. What do you guys think? We've got 7 rations. 7 rations in our bag. Do we want to give them 2, 3? How many rations do we want to give to this these 2 people? These 2 sorters. 1 ration for each of them. 1 each. All right. We'll give them 1 ration. 1 ration each. We take them out of the bag. It's enough food for a day. And they say, no, we can't accept this. You should. No, it's fine. I insist. No, you should give it to Beladel and Olathea. They are the ones who are in charge of preparing food. We're not meant to eat food that hasn't been prepared by them. But we really appreciate your gesture. And as they sort of push the food back to you, you get back 1 ration of food, and you realise that they pretty well sleight of handed the other ration away. No, please head to Beladel and Olathea in the food hall. It is the largest one, the one that where you come up on the rope ladder. That same tree. That's the food hall. If you head in there, Beladel will happily take the rations to prepare for others. And then as you sort of like go to put the rations back in your bag, the hand comes over yours and says, "You didn't find quite as much as you found, right? Right. We should head there so we can talk to this cook, but only give 1 of them." So they finish off giving you the tour, saying like, this is where we keep the Simbatrin, and this is where we keep the Aliandol, and this is where we keep the processed Mondwort, and all of this. Up here is where we keep a small box with the processed berries. You can see that we are running out of those. And you hand over all of your ingredients that you found, and they're very grateful and impressed with you finding so much. Lord Luciferic clearly wishes to create a poison that will affect a green dragon. But would a potion that transmute Luciferic's breath weapon into something else be more effective? Can we suggest anything, or is doing what we're told the only way to do things? Doing what you're told is the way to survive here. I think we have, and at this, there is a creaking of wood outside, and you see Enola appear at the door. She doesn't say anything, she just looks in. Both of the ladies stand up and bow their heads, and in turn we stand up and bow our head. She just stands there and watches us for a moment. What do you want to do? Bow the head. Just wait. How long does it take to offload some foraged goods? Apologies, Enola. We were showing the newcomer the area to get them familiar with the rules of your excellence. Move on. And she takes a step to the side of the door, leaving you space to leave. The other 2 say, right away, and they sit down and start to sort through some piles of stuff and go back to what they were doing, chopping and sorting. Go along with what the elves are doing, keep an eye on her until she leaves. She's standing there waiting for you to leave now. You bow. You thank the ladies for the tour as you're leaving. You say, thank you for the tour, and before you've even finished, there's a crack in the back of your knee as you've turned to speak out, and Enola has hit you in the back of the knee with the butt of her spear, and she says, "No speaking." You stand up and leave back out onto the balcony outside of the storeroom. From the storeroom there's only one bridge, and it goes back across to the tree with the alchemist on it. So you walk back across there, and Enola stays with the... Oh, she's dying first. She stays on the tree with the sorters. Where are you going from here? Do you want to go back into the alchemist's room and speak with them about how it went, or help them with donating your dwarf blood or anything, or do you want to head to the main food hall and drop off any rations? Where do we sleep? You haven't been given anywhere yet. You haven't been told. Enola isn't leaving. She's staying behind on the storehouse tree. She just told you to move on. So you left and went back across the bridge. It's the only place to go from here. But then once you get back across here, there's a couple of different directions you can go. You can stay with the alchemists, you can go to food hall, you can go into some of the other houses that you haven't been in yet and meet some of the others. You can also see that Charlie is no longer standing where he was standing. There's the rub. I wanted to ask Enola where she wants us next, but can't speak without permission. Food hall, alchemists, blood donation, and Charlie. Down to the food hall. Lots of different options. We'll say, since you're already at the alchemists, you pop your head into the alchemist's hut, and you see Capona and Larenton. There's a sort of a bluish fog hanging about 3 inches off of the ceiling of the hut in here, and you can see that it's coming out of a steaming pot in the corner, just billowing out this bluish fog. And both Larenton seems to be just like head in hands, muttering to himself in the corner, while Capona's frantically chopping something over on the other side of the hut. Neither of them seem to notice that you arrive until Capona goes to turn around and sort of double takes. She nods to you and walks back across to him. If we try the secondary route first, we swap the order of the first two. No, it won't. It'll never work. We tried that the second time that we did this. No, we tried the no. That was different because we already heated the pot to the glowing level before we added the first one. I'm saying that we cool it down first to the level where it's hot, but I mean it's not going to. The problem with it needs to be that hot for it to activate. So either we put it in first, or we put. And they have acknowledged that you're here, but they're busy with their own shit. Do you want to wait and ask if there's anything you can do to help, or do you want to move on and find somebody you can offer your blood if they still need that? What do you guys want to do now? Move on. They can be at this for hours. You say, can we help? And she sort of waves a sort of a dismissive hand, and so you take the hint and turn to leave. You walk back over to the rope bridge, and you see that there is a much smaller house. So from the alchemist's hut, there are 2 rope bridges. So before you leave one, actually, there's one that leads over to a smaller tree, a little bit lower. You sort of go down that rope bridge a little bit, probably about 5 to 10 feet lower. And it's a much smaller hut. Through the open doorway from here, you can see that there's a well, you probably can't see him, but he's or them, sorry. You probably can't see them, but there's sounds of some movement happening from inside that hut. So you could go down that way and see what's happening in the small hut. From here, you can go back across to the main area where you come up, and see what's in the food hall. Basically, do you want to explore, and where do you want to go? You look around for Briar. Still no sign of her. Still no sign of Cassandra either. And you now don't see Charlie anymore. We're standing where he was. Are there any dwellings on the forest floor? Just one, and it seems to be the Dragonborn's hut. It is a hut that is not built in the same design as the Wood Elf tree houses, and you were told don't get within 30 feet of this hut. Food hall, it's nearing supper time and our rations might help. Explore where we can. So you walk down the smaller rope bridge down to the small area, and walking in there, you can see that there is an elf in like dungarees almost, not denim, but made out of natural fibers, and they are currently sort of mortar and pestle crushing something in a mortar and pestle, and as you enter, they look up. You can see that their mask is it's like larger around the forehead, and it seems to have like two almost tusk-like part protrusions from either side, along with the same sort of dragon teeth snout with a couple of the teeth missing. They look up and nod and stop what they're doing to look at you. Looking around the room, you can see that there are a few small piles on their work desk of seeds and nuts and some dried what looks like oregano or something, and then there's this mortar and pestle in front of them, and then on their lap is like a big bowl, and it's slowly filling with oil that they are crushing out of these nuts and seeds and things. So when we walk around, can we keep an eye on the dome to see if there's any gaps or weak spots, etc.? Yes, we certainly can. With a 15 plus your perception, 20 something, you can tell that it is very clearly magically created, and you've seen plants manipulated by magic numerous times in your life. Most recently with Briar. Briar knows how to speak with plants and ask them to ensnare people or to move out of the way and all that sort of stuff. So it doesn't surprise you to know that plants can be manipulated in this way. It seems to be magically designed, and as such, it is almost flawless, it seems. You do notice that the natural treetops of the trees on which the Wood Elf village was originally built seems to be above the magical dome top. The dome seems to come up to right up to the tree trunk and branches of the natural trees. So there are parts of the tree that break above, but you'd still encounter dome to get up to it, it seems. So as you cross this drooping bridge down to this smaller area, and you see this elf looking up at you and is in their dungarees. They're crushing into a mortar and pestle, crushing seemingly nuts and seeds, and there's drips of oil coming out from a little spout. They stop, however, and look up at you, and they don't say anything. They just look at you. What do you say? Anything? You wave. Hey. Hello. They don't say anything other than hello. Are you the cook? I'm trying to find the cook. I'm Thanale. Pleasure, Thanale. I'm Apis. I foraged some food today. Okay. They sort of give you a dismissive kind of a wave. You glance around and you see that on the shelf by the door there are jars of oil, like lantern oil, just small jars. You also see that there is a sort of a compost bin nearby where they're sitting, where they can put the cake from the seeds and nuts and things in the oil pressing process. Goes into the compost. Which direction is the cook? They just kind of point without speaking. Right. Well, thank you, Thanale. It was a pleasure to meet you. You turn and leave. You got from them that they were not willing to talk, not as willing as the sorters were. The people in the sorting hut, Leandra and Alethi, were quite friendly, if a little bit quiet. They try to keep their voices hushed, but they were friendly and happy to speak until the arrival of the Dragonborn outside. Whereas Thanale didn't want to speak at all. Seemed rather beaten down, yeah, fearful. So as you leave Thanale's oil crushing house, you head back across to the alchemy thing, and then across that bridge over to the central area where the food hall is, where you were pointed towards. And you walk in and you see that there are 4 tables around the place, each with 4 chairs at them. And out the back of this sort of open plan, large hall area, there is a kitchen. And in the kitchen, busy preparing food currently, are 2 elves. Like with all elves, it's hard to tell gender or sex by looking. But gun to your head, you'd probably guess that one of them was male, one was female, because that's what they are, and wanted to give you some exposition there. You have found the food hall. It's up to you whether you want to stay here and give them any rations, or talk to them, or meet them, introduce yourself or anything, or whether you want to continue on and explore more of the village, try and meet some others. That's up to you. What do you want to do? Just wave to them. Let's roll a perception for them and see if they recognize you. They do, yeah. One of them is sort of glances across to you and says, as you enter, says relatively loudly, "We're not ready yet. It's not supper time. Hold your horses." And then stops and, "Oh, you're the new one. It's we're not ready. You'll know when it's time to eat. The Dragonborn will tell us." They seem sort of dismissive, and they don't seem nearly as frightened as the others. They're just like, "Do your thing. Go away." Investigation to see their food supply. You can't see it from here because you're still in the doorway. You can walk across and actually introduce yourself, and then you might get a better view of the kitchen. How many people in there? Just 2. Start with telling them you've foraged stuff and ask if there's anything they need in particular. I've been out foraging today. I've foraged things. Is there anything in particular that you need? The woman that spoke, Olathea, she says, "No, we get everything we need from the sorters. We get everything we need from Leandra and Alethi. Forage what you need, give it to them. They sort it out and give it out to everybody else who needs it." They're being curt and not exactly polite, but more busy than rude, I would say. Ask if there's anything they'd like us to forage for specifically next time we're out, including quantities they're looking for. So nothing specific I should be looking for? Nothing. Just as much food as you can get, and whatever Alethi and Leandra ask for. I thought we were told to bring stuff here. The sorters told you that they can't accept rations for themselves, but you can take it to them. There seems to be misunderstanding based on the fact that nobody's allowed to talk very much, and nobody really knows how much they're allowed to talk. They told you to deliver the food to the. They said if you've got food, deliver it to the food hall. So that is the sorters saying, "Here, we've sorted food. Take it to the food hall," rather than the forager saying, "Hey, is this food?" There's a subtle difference that I hope you can see. But also, it's food that the Dragonborn don't know that you have yet necessarily. So we start to investigate the food preparation. Are they putting anything untoward into it? We walk in a little closer then, out of the doorway, past the 4 tables, 2 on either side, and get towards the sort of open plan kitchen at the back. Is there anything I can do to help? The other one, who hasn't spoken yet, turns and says, "Yes, you can leave. I'm sorry, we're busy. We know the kitchen better than you do. You're not from round here. You'll be better used somewhere else." While you are relatively close, I will roll you an investigation check to see if you can pick up on anything in particular. That's a 7 plus 3 from intelligence. You don't have investigation, so just a 10. With a 10, you can pick up the fact that they are making food and they're putting a lot of things into it, but you don't know if any of those things are necessarily bad things. It seems if they're putting anything untoward in it, then they're not being obvious about it. No one seems to want us, so we can keep exploring. Head out then. So you turn around, leave the food hall. From here, there is 2 each, and then 1 from each of those. So there's 4 of the buildings that you haven't yet seen. You want to go to the left or the right? Charlie was standing on the right when you saw him before. Not that he's standing there now. Can we check whether they're fearful that we were there, why they want us to leave, or if there's a different reason wanting us to gone? Alright, let's roll an insight check on the cooks and seeing what they think. So 18 plus 2, so a dirty 20. With a dirty 20 insight, the reason that you would say with the dirty 20 on reading them, you would say that the reason for Olathea, the female, not that you get these names, but I'm not going to keep track of who you know and who you don't, so I'm just going to assume that in the next little while you pick up on names from people. Olathea wanted you to leave because she didn't want you in the way. Like she was busy and she didn't have time to talk to a new person. Belladel probably is racist. You've dealt with racist elves before, as a dwarf particularly. You are used to elves looking down on you. Belladel looked down his nose at you when you offered to help. Tried to backtrack a little bit after being particularly rude, and then just kind of dismissive from that point. These guys are the cooks. So did we want to go to the left or the right? Left, right. I got one left and one right. Can we ask if they know how the Dragonborn are seen in the dark? As we go to leave the kitchen, then we turn and say, "Can I ask a question?" And Olathea says, "You probably shouldn't." You say, "How is it that the Dragonborn are seen in the dark?" And she looks across at Belladel, and he looks back, kind of just rolls his eyes and shakes his head, continues on doing what he was doing. And she says, "They're given potions of dark vision at the start of every shift." "Right. From Capona?" "Yes, who else?" "I'm sorry, yes. The potion makers make the potions of dark vision to give to the Dragonborn." "Right. Thanks." And you leave. Left, right, both ways at once. You guys suck. Right. So you go to the right. You take the bridge that leads you kind of across to the other side of the dome, as it were. It's a relatively long bridge, long and drawn out. We need to find our usefulness inside the dome so we don't look like we're standing around. But we can't look like we're sneaking around whispering as well, per the sorters. Exactly. They're like, you've got to find that balance of being like not sneaking around, having things happen, but like making yourself useful and actually talking to people. As you are leaving and walking across this long bridge, you see the Dragonborn woman, Enola, starting to make her way back across the direction from the sorting hut, back towards you. You land down on the other platform on the other side, and you see that there is this one's open plan with no roof to it, and it is from instant glances at it, it looks like a workshop, a workshop of a creator. There are half sculpted wooden sculptures around the place. There's workbenches with all kinds of chisels and tools on it, but in like organized fashion, so that they know where all of their tools are. And you can see that there is a woman elf there who is wearing her mask, as she's got her back to you, and she's sculpting at something, a wooden sculpture in front of her. It looks about like a bust of somebody. She's chiseling away as you approach. Let's see, how perceptive is she? Does she hear you coming? She does, yeah. So she glances back and sort of double takes as you arrive down next to her sort of open plan workshop. She says, "You're the new one. Apis, is it?" "That's right, I'm Apis." Word gets around. She just turns her back to you and starts chiseling. Sleight of hand, can we steal some tools when her back's turned to us? We could definitely try to. It would be a risky maneuver, but it might end in us having a chisel. "Do not steal anything, OMG." No. Okay, most people saying no, we're not going to steal tools. The thought crosses Apis' mind briefly, and then the rest of the mind goes, no, let's not do that. That's dangerous. What do you want to do, though? You're standing behind an elf who is chiseling away at a wooden sculpture, a bust of a humanoid by the looks of it. Investigate the finished works. You step forwards and start to investigate some of the finished works, and you quickly realise that none of them are finished. You realise that some of them are getting close. There's sculptures that are all pretty much the same. You recognise them as definitely being busts, or from the sort of waist up, a couple of them, of Dragonborn. But there's a few that have very clear blemishes. There's like a huge chunk that's like cut out of one of them's snout and face at this portion here that seems to have hit a grain in the wood that's snapped the thing off. There's another where the head has started to split and warp, just from natural grains in the wood, sort of pulling apart in the weather and things. We haven't asked her name yet. We haven't asked anything. If not, ask her name. So, looking at these Dragonborn sculptures, we get close enough to see that the one that she's working on is also a Dragonborn. It's a lot smaller though, and it's like from the head, and it's not even a full bust. It's like only neck and collarbones essentially, with a Dragonborn snout. As you look and you say, you have my name, I didn't get yours. And she says over her shoulder, Alana. Alana. Right, and you're a sculptor, obviously. Yes, I make works for Luciferique. Can you mind, please? You're standing in my light, and you turn and you're standing in front of an oil lantern that's casting light so that she can actually see what she's working on. Did the subjects of these sculptures not like them? She says, well, yes and no. Some of them started to snap and break, warp a little, and then that's what they didn't like, and so they've asked me to start again. It's a lovely name. She doesn't respond to that. Is there anything we can do to help? I'm sorry. I'm very busy. No, thank you, but no. What are you making them for? For Luciferique. He demands sculpture every month and wants elven perfection without giving me the time to actually work on it. These things usually take decades to work. Now I've got a bloody month to make these things perfect for elven accuracy. It's. She seems to be busy. Our insight is enough to know that elven works of art are pride of place in a lot of people's art collections, but they achieve such grace and excellence because the artists spend literally decades working on them. And she, it seems, has been given like a month. Luciferique's like, make me a piece of art every month. That must be frustrating. That's one word for it. My apologies for interrupting. If I can provide better wood or stone, you let me know. She turns and looks at you properly for the first time. You're a lumberjack or a stonemason? You're kind of good with stone, right? Yes? I am relatively good with stone, yes. You see down in your character sheet there, you've got stonework history proficiency. You're not proficient in mason's tools, but as a dwarf, you just naturally are better at understanding stonework. I haven't been able to do stonework in a while, and stonework was my forte. I was much better with stone sculptures than I was with wood. If you can find me, what's some good stonework? Robert doesn't know enough about stone sculptures to know. Is there any particular stone that's better for making stonework? Granite? Is it? I don't know. Marble? Marble's good, but you're not just going to find it. She says a type of stone. She says, if you can find me any insert good stone for making stone work here, soapstone. If in your travels outside you find me any soapstone, I would appreciate it. Even small amounts, I can make relatively nice structures and artwork. Thank you. Just invent one. Yeah, well, true. If you can find me any Jahabra stone, it's a fantastic stone that is useful for stonework artisanship. Anyway, she says a stonework. If you can find some nice stone on your journeys, she'd happily take it. Can we drop her a ration sleight of hand like when nobody's looking? What do you guys think? Should we do that? Should we drop Alana one of our 6 rations in secret? Try and get her on our side. Slip her some food. Started off with strong yeses, but there's some no's coming in now. Let's put it to a poll real quick. Just a 1-minute poll. Obviously, the benefit is that it gets her onto our side, makes her endears ourselves to her a little. Drawback is that we don't know who's watching or what's watching, and might piss people off. Might be breaking the rules. 66%, however, vote yes. Let's slip her some rations. So we're going to roll a sleight of hand check. It was almost a nat 1 and then rocked onto a 13. You see that happen, everybody? Whew. Sleight of hand. We are not proficient in sleight of hand, so it's just straight dexterity, which takes it to a 16. With a 16, we take our rations down from 6 to 5. As we sort of lean in and say, "Right, I'll do my best to find you some stone then." And then as we sort of stand away from the table, we've left behind in our hand, as we sort of leant forward, we leave behind a small packet of the packaged up rations that we already had on our person, the ones that are actually packaged up and not just things that we foraged. Moving on, you have one more place that you can go from here. You step out across a relatively short bridge. This one's actually not a rope bridge, but it's actually a solid wooden bridge that spans just 2 relatively close trees. And similarly, on the other side of this wooden bridge, is a workshop, a carpentry workshop. Just outside of it, sawing away, having listened and sort of heard most of this interaction with you and Alana, is a carpenter. You approach, he gives a nod. You see that he is quite a thin fella and quite short. He wears a tunic over wraps. His tunic is sort of hanging open, and he's got a wrap around here that's real tight. And as you approach, he's got a green dragon mask on as well. The eye socket around his green dragon mask has got a huge crack down the side of it. He says, "Hello, new guy," and he kind of has a smirky smile to him as he says that. I'm going to roll a perception check for the old guy, as it were. The one that was watching and listening as he was sawing wood. So you walk across the short bridge towards him. He stops what he's doing. He lifts up his mask and wipes his brow. Puts his mask back down. Says, "So, what's your name?" He sort of sits down and bumps his butt against the thing he was working on. "I'm Apis. What's yours?" "I'm Tisharu." And he holds out his hand towards you. These 2 people are in the same hut. No, imagine 2 trees growing very closely to each other. One is in one and one is in the other, and there is a wooden bridge that has been fashioned up between the 2 areas. But he's a carpenter with a proper workshop, ceiling and everything, and hers is like open plan. No walls or ceiling to it. You reach out, you shake his hand. Has a relatively firm grasp. He says, "So, what brings you here to this little isolated area?" He goes back to sawing some wood. "It's not exactly the destination location for vacations, is it? I'm on vacation, hey. I'm looking for somewhere to stay the night, actually. Oh. Oh yes, of course, you need sleep, don't you? They're going to have to consider that, aren't they? Perhaps that's something I could actually work on. You've made me useful for another month yet. You've already shown your worth. Seems like I've got a place that I can start working on. The more people he steals from that human town. Whereabouts are you from? Has he found a dwarven town now as well? At this point you hear shouting across from the main bridge, 2 bridges away. The main sort of food hall area. Tisharu! Keep your voice down! You look across and you see not what's her face, Inola. You instead see. What time is it? Actually, you don't see Pakrish either. You see a new dragonborn. You see a male dragonborn. You can't really get the details too much because you're a little ways away yet. But he's standing there with shield on one hand, spear on the other, and he's shouting across to Tisharu. Tisharu says, "My apologies, Zakar. I'll definitely put my voice down now." And he shouts this across to them. And you can see from the expression that, oof, if I was next to you, ooh, but it doesn't follow up on anything. He sort of looks side eyes you and gives you a bit of a wink. If you're looking for a place to stay, you can you're probably going to have to make do with the Trance hall. And he gestures past the place where you came in and onto the other bridge, the only other place of the wood elf village that you haven't actually checked out yet. Says you'll have to check out the Trance hall. Of course, we don't need to sleep very much, if at all. But your kind will need to rest. We don't have beds per se, but it's designed to be comfortable for when we're meditating. Right, yeah. Thank you. Oh, don't mention it. I haven't done anything yet. So where are you from? Is there a dwarf village that he's taken, or? We're here to help, that's all, in always. Should have seen the last place I stayed at. I like him, but at the same time would be awesome spy for Lucifreak, a charismatic elf. Indeed. Ask if you've seen the new tiny halfling around. I want to know what the heck where they've stashed Briar. Do you, when I think about it, while you're talking about other people who need sleep, have you seen the others that he's brought here? You mean Charlie? Well, yeah, but I mean more like the one that came in with me, Briar. I don't think I've met a Briar. Who's Briar? She came in on the back of the red deer. Oh, she was... I thought she was a child. No, she looks like a human child, but she's actually halfling. Hobbit, sorry. Right. No, I'm afraid I haven't seen her. He sort of just glances around as if he's going to see her right now. I haven't seen her, sorry. Do you know if he would take her elsewhere? Like, is he... I mean, it's possible. He can do whatever he wants. He's our Lord and Saviour after all, isn't he? Our all-powerful God. Able to do what... I won't tell you again! Sorry! Keeping my voice down now. Shut up! At the end of the conversation, if we give rations, we need to check if the Dragonborn is watching us first. Yeah. You can see that same Dragonborn looking across now has started making his way across the rope bridge towards the sculptor's place. Can we do an insight check to determine his authentic good nature? Sure can. We can certainly try. 18 plus 2. Look at this. Dirty 20 on insight again. It's an insight mixed with sort of a perception and investigation here, because what gives you the impression that he's being authentic is the number of scars he has. When he took up his mask to sort of wipe his brow, you saw there was a huge scar right across the side of his head, right underneath where the crack in his skull was. In the skull mask, I should say. it looked relatively fresh. You also see that his jaw is slightly to the side, as if perhaps it has been broken and rehealed. You notice that his hands are heavily scarred, but then again he is a carpenter, so quite possibly that's just how it goes. It goes with the territory. There's quite a good chance that this guy has been beaten several times and is just this way. Got a lot of spirit in him, yeah. He doesn't give you reason to believe that he is like putting it on for show or anything. You feel like he's just this way. I like him more than Joey. Whoa, that's saying something. Is there anything else you want to ask this guy or talk to him about? He's useful enough that his sassiness is barely tolerated. It seems like it. As a carpenter, as the only one who is like the one who maintains these buildings and keeps them from falling down and all of that shit, it seems like he's good to keep around. You see, so can I ask why these masks? And he says, yeah, I've been asking myself that. Oh, sorry, Zakar. Can I help you? And Zakar, you turn around now, and he's made his way across the sculptor's thing, and he's like storming across to you. Was I being too loud again? I'm so sorry. And sort of bows his head. And the butt of the spear comes spinning round and crack right across the back of his head as he sort of bows his head towards Zakar. Oh, that was a good one. That holds his hand up and. Oh, I'm seeing stars. Shut up, I say! Whack! The butt of the spear hits him in the solar plexus. Oh. You just sort of stand off to the side. The spear tip comes back round and sort of points in your general direction. What are you doing here? I'm trying to make myself useful, sir. Do it somewhere else. To shadow is too much of a mouth and you will pick up bad habits. Right you are. Sort of nod, semi-bow to this guy and walk past him. You walk back over to the sculpting place. You hear as you're walking across the sculpting place. Ooh, that's quite the hit. I will remember to not cross you again, Zakar. My apologies for forgetting again. You know how my brain is. And some angry footsteps follow across the bridge behind you. You walk across the rope bridge, bouncing as you go, and then as you reach the other side, there's another bounce as the Zakar steps onto the rope bridge and bounces you almost off of it. You get back out into the main area and across the final rope bridge that you haven't yet explored. We head across that way, and as you arrive there, you see that it's a large. It seems to be the base of a relatively large tree that has been lopped off at the top completely, and all of the branches coming out of it have all been lopped off at the same sort of height, and in its place has been erected a cylindrical wooden plank building, hut, up to where the canopy meets it. It seems like at one point this would have been like an open topped cylindrical building, but is now obviously covered by the dome. It's got a large open doorway to it. You walk in and there's nobody in there at the moment, but there are several cushions, just lots and lots of cushions just around the place. It's got barely anything else in it. It does have some drawings on the walls, some paintings rather on the walls, sort of like a full mural that leads all the way around. And these paintings on the inside have been thoroughly defaced. It seems. Let's make an investigation check. Nat 1. A Nat 1 plus your 3 intelligence. You can't make out in the darkness that's inside. Realizing that there's no windows in the darkness that's inside, and the heavy defacing of it, you can't really make out what the drawing would have been on the inside of it. Probably some. You can make out some humanoids and things, but you can't really make out anything else other than that. You can just tell that this is a hall where they lay out a whole bunch of cushions and things. I said there was no one in here. There is someone in here. It is Cassandra. You see, sort of huddled in a corner, rocking back and forth on a a cushion. The corner of a cylindrical room. Yeah, huddled in a corner of a round room. Huddled in the far side. The young girl, who's in her mid-teens, human girl that used to be the receptionist of the Knights of Kvosna until this morning, is sort of holding her knees and just rocking. She doesn't seem to see you enter. The wall is about 10 feet tall, Spates, so for you as a dwarf, you wouldn't be able to climb the inner wall. It seems like solid wood, wooden planks. You walk over to her, and she kind of like starts as you get within a couple of feet, and she finally notices you, and you slide down the wall next to her. No. Are we? You see like 5 different emotions go through her mind at once, like the instant of oh thank God it's that dwarf that's been working with the knights, I'm saved, and then realizes that there hasn't been like a huge sound of a battle outside, so no, this dwarf is probably captured as well, and then like, oh shit, if this dwarf's been captured, then all is lost, because whoever they are, they were working with the knights and they were doing a good job of it. So she's just a big mess of emotions all at once when she sees you. Cassandra, are you okay? There weren't any Dragonborn following you when you walked across this bridge. It's okay, Cassandra. We'll be okay, just one day at a time. I don't want to die. You'll be okay. We're going to be okay. Are you hurt? She says no. And with an 8 in sight, you take her at her word. You take out your water skin, pop the top off of it and hold it out. Here, drink some water. Drink up. Come on, you need to keep your strength. She takes some water and drinks it. Awkwardly pat her arm. Can we use charisma to try and lift her spirits? Sure can. Let's make a charisma check. Just straight up charisma check. See how well you do. 4. You had so many good rolls today. It's about time it's coming back around. With a 5 charisma, you in the moment you're just not sure what to say. She's a young human woman. You've got no life experience that you can really connect with her on. Obviously, you've both been captured by a dragon, so there's that. But like for her, it's so much of a different experience. Even that is a different experience for you than her. So you're just not sure what to say in the moment. You just kind of stumble on your words a little bit, and it doesn't seem to help. Look, this is going to sound harsh, but if you get caught crying instead of making yourself as useful as possible, you're going to end up like Taoshu. Look, I will see if they will teach, if they'll let me teach you how to forage tomorrow. You can stay with me then. You can have a use for the town. They need as many forages as they can. You can be of use to them. If you've not yet found something you can do to help, this is something you can do. Cheer her up with some panpipes. You can try if you want. Rub her back softly. You go and rub her back a little. I can guarantee they'll be annoyed with that, with panpiping without permission. Well, with a 5 mentioning Tao Chu was fitting. Yeah, it seemed to be. Look, we'll find a way out of this. It'll be all right. The whole tower is gonna be. They don't even know that's coming. Come on, let's get you up. Come on, come with me. Just gonna make an athletics check for you as you just stand her. She's got not exactly dead weight, but she's uncooperative weight. 13 plus 1 strength, plus 3 for athletics. Nice. So you get a 17. It's very much easy enough to stand her to her feet. She's semi-cooperating. Come on, let's get you up. Come with me. Dry your eyes and let's make some use of you. You're gonna be okay. You're not alone anymore, okay? I'm here. We're gonna get through this. We're gonna do our best to keep everyone safe. Time to start breathing exercises with her. You try and calm her down with some breathing. Deep breath. Come on, one at a time. And in. And out. One other thing you notice is that her dragon skull mask is sitting on the ground beside her. She has a dragon skull mask that seems thicker in the cheek plates than snout. Seems like almost a fatter sort of a shape. Still has the top jaw with most of the dragon teeth intact. I'm so happy it's Apis and not me with Cassandra. You see, they don't even know what's coming, Cassandra. The town he's coming. He can get through the walls. Yeah, the town's aware that he can get through the walls. But they're trying to lock him out, and he's not coming. We're gonna do our best to keep everyone safe. Today you're alive, and we'll make sure you're alive tomorrow. Put your mask on, Cassandra. You must wear your mask. You need to play along with them for now. Let's hope that Apis never decides to retire and become a therapist. 13. Ooh, okay. Ooh, okay. You bend down, you take the mask. It's got the leather straps that's in through drilled holes in the temples of the skull. And she lifts her head and sort of goes to try and like pull away, and you're like, no, come on, Cassandra, you need to wear it for now. You place it on. Take it easy. I know it seems bad, but we'll get through this. How were you taken? And she says, I was in the town square. And I was going to work at the nights. And then they came out of the well. They came out of the well? There were lots of them. Maybe 6 or so that came out of the well. What came out of the well? Little kobolds. They grabbed me and they pulled me down into the well. And that's when... And then her eyes sort of go to the side over your shoulder. And you turn and look. And standing there is Enola in the doorway, listening to the whole thing. And that is where I'm going to leave it for today. Thank you for joining me, everybody. I will see you next week. Oh, hey, look at that. It's the end of the video. Don't forget to hit subscribe. See if you can get me to that next arbitrary milestone of 10,000 subscribers. That'd be pretty cool. Thank you.